Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Lady T. Good afternoon. I was about to chat you up and ask you, are we starting by the 12:15 or not?
See, today has been a day and a half.
I know, I know that you've been stressed, but don't worry, everything
Uh,
is
let me stop expect today, and I have started recording for this session. So let me know when you can see my screen so that I can go ahead and we'll run through what we have planned for today. Yes, thank you. So, of course, as you are aware, our webinar today, that's the second webinar for the year, is titled Is Development as We Know It's Changing? This is actually a question, and I hope that at the end of today, we'll be able to answer it. And this is our 1 year anniversary special also, because on the 11th of June 2025, we turned one. Although our first conversation was conducted, I think it was sometime around this time also. And the purpose of today's panel event is to convene a diverse panel of development practitioners across different contexts, regions, and career levels to critically examine how the field of development is evolving, what this means for us as practitioners, organizations, and also beneficiaries, and how we can reimagine the impact in this changing space. And so we have a very interesting and packed agenda. As you can see, we're starting by 2:30 p.m. Usually we start by 3 p.m. But because we have such a rich agenda for us, we said it is important that we start early. And so on our agenda today, we have the welcome and opening, which will be led by Habiba Sharon Yakubu, and we'll go straight into the panel discussions. And I'm going to take some time to just introduce the people that we have here with us. You guys, I think this is going to be the best panel that we have had so far. Then, of course, we would have audience interaction that will be led by Maureen Allo. Here, we would want to hear from you. It is supposed to be an interactive session. I want to hear from you, want to hear your voices, want to read from you. And then we're going to have way forward and key takeaways because, of course, at TDC, we do not end our conversations or dialogue or anything without having actionable steps. So we're going to have way forward and key takeaways. And then we'll be going into our anniversary celebration moment where we will share a special documentary. Please, if you're excited about this, can I see the emojis and the celebratory emojis and the rest? Because I am particularly excited about this documentary where you get to see our journey for the past 1 year and then what we have planned for you and development practitioners across Africa for the next 1 year and the coming years. And then we will come to a very warm and exciting close. Are you excited about what we have planned for you today? Okay, let me hear, let me see the chat, what is happening. I'm going to read the chat. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, so I am pretty much pumped and excited about what we have right now for us. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Habiba Sharon Yakubu, who is going to officially start off our Q2 webinar. Habiba, over to you. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening from whichever part of the globe you're joining us. I want to say thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. I would like to know how excited you are because I am really feeling the buzz already. And again, it is our 1 year anniversary, so it is so much packed in. Today's conversation is going to be highlighting a lot that has to do with the development space, and you as a development practitioner will be discussing what we would be navigating in this sector that we are in. What is happening and how should we prepare ourselves? Our panelists are fully equipped to give us all that we need. Every speaker that will be coming up is packed with knowledge and information and strategies in which we can equip ourselves and be fully prepared for the next transition in this sector. I really hope that we have our writing pads, we are going to be interacting as much. I would recommend, if you're someone like me that loves tea or water or some coffee, this is the right time to begin getting these so that you are not leaving your seat, because you may miss anything if you jump out. And so with further ado, I would love to please forward this to the next person who will be coming up. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Habiba, for that very, very quick and efficient introduction. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Please let me know when you can see my screen as we go into the meat of this meeting. At TDC, we do not waste time. We do not waste time at all. So can you confirm that you can see my screen clearly? Okay, so I'm going to go right into introducing our amazing guest. I'm going to start with Nurudeen Lawal. So Nurudeen is someone that I have greatly admired for a long time. I remember in 2016, when he reached out, he was in an organization and they were coming for a scoping visit in Northeast Nigeria. And the organization I was with at that time was one of the few organizations implementing education. And that was the first interaction I had with him. And then we subsequently met, and for a long time, I was like, oh my God, I would love to work and learn from him. And as fate would have it, I got the opportunity to work with him in on one of the biggest reading projects in Nigeria, and I learned a lot. One thing that stood out to me about Nurudeen is his passion for learning. You guys, if you go into his office, you're going to see a huge library with books. And I remember he gave me this book about change. And because I enjoyed the book so much, I had to go on Amazon Kindle and buy my own copy. So let me just read a bit about him. He is an accomplished educational leader with experience in implementing and managing international development programs aimed at enhancing education quality, equity, and accessibility to vulnerable children and youth in Nigeria and South Sudan. Currently, he is a team lead and founder of Quality Education Development Associates, an organization dedicated to driving sustainable and scalable solutions to accessible quality education in Africa. The QEDA faculty worked with international, national, and subnational entities and governments to achieve reforms in education, edtech, and youth development. He has led major projects in Edo, Kano, Kaduna, Kogi, among others. And he also has a proven track record of holding key management positions, such as Chief of Party of USAID-funded projects like Learn to Read, NEIE Plus. He was a project director with FHI and the likes of it. His technical, apologies, please. His technical expertise spans roles such as education specialist on USAID Nigeria Community Participation for Action in the Social Sector Project Compass, education quality specialist for DFID, formerly DFID, now FCDO Education Sector Programs, senior teacher education advisor on USAID's Northern Education Initiative activity. Additionally, his background includes contributions to teacher development programs and crisis response projects, reflecting a deep interest in education reforms, reading initiative, and teacher education. At this point, I actually expect a standing ovation for Mr. Nurudeen Lawal. I am personally excited to have you and the TDC team, and everyone on this call is excited to have you, sir. Welcome. I am now going to go to Noelle Uloko. Fun fact, Noelle and I went to university together. That is the very best university in Nigeria. Please, who can guess what university that is? I don't want to hear the other one. Well, it is University of Jos. So there are two universities in Nigeria, University of Jos and others. Please, my respective speakers, if you're from the other universities, I am sorry, but right now we're from the best university. So she and I went to school together, and one thing that has stood out, like for me, consistently when I engage with Noelle, is her commitment to the work that she does, her studiousness, and she's very passionate, meticulous, and absolutely excellent in everything that she does. Noelle Uloko is an experienced project manager with over a decade of experience directing and delivering complex multi-sectoral projects across education, health, infrastructure, and governance. She is currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Operations at Cloneshouse LLC. She oversees national and international projects with a focus on strategic planning, operational excellence, and budget performance management. At Clonehouse, Noelle and her team have worked on high-impact assignments with organizations such as UNICEF, UNDP, International IDEA, and Ministry of Budget and National Planning, managing logistics, coordinating cross-functional teams, and ensuring fiscal responsibility across multiple states and countries. Her project work spans Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Somali, Mozambique, Zambia, etc., 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 because I can see it's a lot. She holds a master's degree in business administration from Ahmadu Bello University and a Bachelor of Science in biochemistry from the great University of Jos. She also earned a certificate in people management from the University of London. Noelle is fluent in English and proficient in Hausa. She's known for her reliability, sharp, proven problem-solving skills, and strong stakeholder management. Noelle brings a thoughtful, impact-driven approach to development work. She remains committed to improving systems that serve community, especially in contexts requiring logistical agility, financial stewardship, and inclusive program design. Please put your hands together for Noelle. Noelle, it is so good to have you. You are welcome. Next is Cassiana Dashe. I had the privilege of meeting Cassiana through one of our speakers. Some of our OG participants will remember Adeze Nwanyi Buefe. So I met her through Cassiana. And of course, when you see an amazing and passionate development practitioners, one thing you're going to see around them is equally amazing and passionate development practitioners. And that was how I met Cassiana. One thing that stands out about Cassiana is that she's passionate about homegrown solutions for whatever problems we are facing in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Yes, she has a very beautiful smile, I agree. She's a firm believer in the power of communication to build bridges. Cassiana Unkom Dashe is committed to understanding how communication can be used as an effective tool for social change and tells development stories for a living. So we have a storyteller here. I hope you all are ready to pick one or two storytelling skills from her. She has a vast experience spanning well over a dozen years. Cassiana is dedicated to deploying impactful program approaches, research insights, and strategic communications that bridge the gap between society and development. She has supported various organizations with social behavioral change, SBC, demand generation, communication for development, knowledge management, technical advisory, strategy, development, information and public relations, lecturing, customer service, and marketing communications. When she wants to distress, Cassiana types poems or fiction as furiously as the keyboard allows and relaxes with a cup of tea or coffee and a book. Cassiana, I need to read one of those your poems because I do not see how writing a poem is a tool for distressing, but obviously that is what you're passionate about. So it's good to have you here. You're welcome, Cassiana. And finally, we have Inyang Umoren. I met Inyang for the first time when in 2016 I went there was this program that was planned or that was organized by TEP Center, and that was my first encounter with her, although from a distance. And as space would have it, I had the opportunity to work with her on a project I worked on about 2 years ago. And one thing I'm going to describe Inyang with is quiet storm. So Inyang is very quiet and unassuming, but my goodness, the content that she has, the quality of her work, her ideas, and her ability to work with different people. So that project that we worked on had about 13 different partners, and for the first year or so, it was chaotic because, of course, you have different people, different organizations coming with their ideas, their egos and all. But one thing I admired greatly about Inyang is that her ability to navigate those and also do her work well. So Inyang is an expert in international education policy and programs with broad experience spanning classroom teaching, literacy program management, learning assessment, and teacher capacity development. She has provided technical support for large-scale initiatives, working closely with partners to adapt evidence-based approaches, strengthen monitoring systems, and identify new opportunities for impact. Inyang brings strong expertise in program management, stakeholder engagement, and literacy development. She is currently leading a multi-country project aimed at strengthening education and skills data systems over a multi-year period. Wow, wow, wow. What an amazing, group of experienced people that we have today. Please let us put our heads together one more time for our different speakers. You are all welcome. It's so good to have you. So now we're going to go right into it. My speakers, please, can you turn on your video so that I'll be able to spotlight each and every one of you as you answer different questions. Yes, I can see Mr. Nurudeen. You're welcome, sir. It is so good to have you here. I'm going to see, let me add to, oh, okay, sorry. So please just give me a minute as I add different people to spotlight. We're learning how to navigate technology. I don't know how many of you are actually very conversant with that funny video that goes technology. So that is why I'm really very excited. You're welcome, everyone. So before I go right into it, I am going to start with Mr. Nurudeen, sir. If for our questions, I'm just quickly trying to pull it out. I am tempted to ask everybody to wave their jotters with me. I mean, wave it so that I can be sure that everybody's going to write, because we cannot waste this. All right, so Mr. Nurudeen, I'm going to start with you, right? Can you tell the House what changes have you observed in the development space over the last 2 to 3 years? So I don't just want us to look at this past 1 year that has been very eventful for us, but when you look at the development space for the past 1 to 3 3 years or 2 to 3 years, what are the changes that you have seen? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I would like to start by congratulating the development conversation team, especially you, Toby, for the wonderful work that you're doing. I actually think that question will start by saying that some of the changes that have happened includes the development conversation being battered. And also to say a very big thank you to everyone that is in this webinar. You all very welcome, and I'm quite honored to be here with you and to also learn from you your own perspective to how on this topic on its development as we know it changing. I think that probably I'm privy to have been on a lot of USID in particular projects. And I remember way back then when USID started education in Nigeria and how much some of us really felt that this is the way to go in making impact in the communities, especially on major areas of development around economic growth, health, education, energy, climate, infrastructural development, and all of that. But I think consequently, a lot of things has changed since then. But you said I should reduce this to in the last 3 years. For me, in the last 2, 3 years, we started hearing about locally led development. And I think that was the beginning of the change we're seeing here. And so I think it has been long coming, and it's not just something that happened suddenly. The sudden part of it was a USID thing, but in terms of plans for things to change, things are started changing in the last 3, 4 years when we started hearing locally led development. Also, we started hearing a change from service delivery to technical assistance on a lot of fronts, and of course, changing priorities in terms of what service delivery should be and what development model is best fitted, because each funding organization have a series of mechanisms to which you can get funding from them. And a lot of those funding started becoming more contractual than grants, especially when you consider what you are delivering in terms of the sector and the weight or the scope of the activity. Those are some of the things that I can say specifically has changed in the last 2 3 years. I think we started seeing trickles, but it's more than a trickle now of organizations that are locally led also because of this new thinking around locally led development springing up. And we have a couple of them across Africa that are really very big now. And if you decide to go on, I won't be naming names, if you decide to go on funding websites of organizations like Gates Foundation, organization like even USID, if we can still access their platform and other organizations, you see much more number of local organizations being supported under this different mechanism. I don't know if this question will go to other people, so I don't have to say all the points around it. But so more projects are being TA focused. More strong local organizations are springing up, and obviously the funding around education and other sector started trickling in terms of reducing in the last 2 3 years. It started, especially the first one we got hit of was the FCDO reduction and changing funds in terms of what they are funding, reduction in funding for education, massive one. And then what we've just seen in the last 1 year or even 3 months, 4 months. I also think that basically, I think new funding organizations are also coming, but different. Their mechanisms are quite different from the donor agency kind of thing that we see under FCDO, USID, and World Bank funding. Yeah, I think I'll stop there and let other people contribute to the same point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You actually just captured the changes. The first one was locally led, implementation model, where you see the demand for donors saying that they want more local organizations. So that is Nigerian or national organizations coming into the scene. And I remember my interaction with that. I was working with an international development organization when I first interacted with it through the Education in Emergency Working Group in the humanitarian sector. And you could literally feel it felt like a slap to the INGOs when that demand came in, because funding that were allocated to them were now shifting to national organizations. But that's something that we have seen. Another thing that you said that stood out to me was the delivery method of our program, where it's started moving from service delivery to technical assistance. Now, somebody like me that came from the humanitarian, where we're used to service delivery. So when you say development work, our work is let's go to school, let's support in reconstructing schools, let's do teacher, and training and the rest. When I moved to the development side of things, that is where things were a bit more calmer. I think one of the shockers for me was switching my mind from service delivery to technical assistance. So whereby you have to work closely with our government partners to strengthen their system, to support them to do what they need to do. So thank you for putting that, like, you just mentioned some of these points. You articulated them clearly. So I'm going to go to Inyang right now. Inyang, from your experience leading literacy and teacher development initiatives, what has evolved in the way government and donors approach program ownership and collaboration? So I think the first question is, has anything changed? So when you look at ownership and collaboration, has anything changed with the way our government and then also donors approach it? If nothing has changed, that's fine. And then, yes, and if they have changed, then what has really changed right now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So thanks a lot for the opportunity, but also congratulations on the 1-year anniversary. It's good to see that get to this point. And thanks for taking up the mantle to implement and run the development conversation. All right. So to your question around, what has changed around ownership. And I think once the technical assistance thing, just tying on the technical assistance conversation came in, it meant that financial responsibility needed to shift, right? And I think the way we framed it over the last couple of years, or donors have framed it over the last couple of years, have been the word sustainability. So when we talk about how do you make a program sustainable, right? Oftentimes it means how do you get it to the point where ownership transitions from the donor to the government, right? So there's been a lot of focus around how do we make sure that we're building in sustainability measures, transitions, measures to ensure that whatever is being implemented will be transited to to the government to manage over time, right? So getting more government ownership. There's really been a shift around that. There's more pressure from development partners for governments to take control, to manage, to lead from a human resource perspective, so from technical expertise to financial resources, right? So there's more push around how do we ensure we are strengthening capacity within the government to ensure that they are able to implement this, own this, and run it after the program ends. And there's also, with the sustainability, also comes a shift in the mindset from projects, where you're only just thinking this is a 3-year project, and once it gets to 3 years, we pack our loads and leave, to thinking about a project from a more long-term perspective. So you're starting a project now, what needs to be in place to ensure that government can manage it over time? So if I take an example of teaching at the right level, the project we were implementing, I was supporting in Nigeria, you would see that we try to ensure that every aspect of the project builds in government structures, right? To ensure that if this cannot function within the government system, then it shouldn't be part of the plan. So that became, we see that in a lot of proposals, the request to always ensure that you are putting in sustainability. And in each case, really saying, how do we transition ownership to government? And that also meant, instead of waiting for the previous ways we used to operate, which is pilot a program, and then expect government to take it forward after the pilot has ended, we have transitioned to building in the ownership from the beginning, from the design of the project, right? So that you're consistently working with government through that process from the beginning. And I think that also kind of really ties into the collaboration, where it has really been essential to ensure that you are not working outside of a government system. You're not working outside of a collaborative effort with government. Because what we would see traditionally is, if you're not working with government, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is, like, we weren't there, right? We don't know what you did. We can't also validate what you did because we're not part of the process. So definitely that collaboration is essential also from the beginning, even from the design stage, like even when you start thinking about it. When you start thinking about the intervention, it's essential that you are also ensuring that this aligns with the needs of the government, right? So that they're also working with you step by step. So ownership and collaboration, it's like a strong collaboration would strengthen the possibilities of a strong ownership at the end of the day. So that has really been a shift. Donors have really been asking, ensure that you're building sustainability into it, ensure that government is taking some level of ownership within the project, and ensure that we're also not thinking that it's just a 3-year program and that would end, or a 3-year project. So everything now is more like, how do you think long-term about this? And, with the recent financing issues that we've had with, funding decline, it's also a sign. I mean, like Mr. Nurudeen highlighted before, these are things that we had seen, previous years. They're just beginning to show up now in like huge reality. And all of this have been signs to say, let's transition to more ownership at country level, whether it's between, within government or local organizations. Let's transition to that part. So I think that's a strong thing that has come through in the last couple of years.
Wow, thank you so much. I think one of the things that stood
I think
out
this is a
to
conversation.
me, sir?
I think this is a conversation, and I want to comment on that. I think one very important thing, following up on what Inyang just talked about, is this issue around result-based financing. It's something that started coming up in the last 2-3 years, whereby even when donors give you money, they want you to like attach results, direct results of what is going to change on ground to the fund being given. And so result-based financing is becoming much more popular. And I think it started just in the last 2-3 years also much more prominently. Over.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. So I'll point out something that she said, and also speaking to what Mr. Nurudeen just said. I think this question or this phrase that Inyang made is, if this cannot function in the government system, then it cannot be part of the program. What a way to see sustainability. It is so important because I have been part of proposal development or discussions where probably people are looking at designing a program, and the question isn't necessarily about it functioning or the intervention functioning in the existing structures, right? And so when it comes to sustainability, you already know that the project is doomed to fail, because after that project has been implemented and the donors leave, the organization leaves, because what was initially designed cannot fit into the existing structure or even a perfect picture of the of the government structure, you know that there is nothing about sustainability. So thank you for bringing that out. And what Mr. Nurudeen said about results-based financing. A couple of years ago, I was working in an organization that got funding, and that was result-based. It was result-based financing, and all of us that were project coordinators were brought into the room and were trained. Like, this is the future of development. Please pay attention. And to us, it just felt like it was very, very far, because we're used to collecting money from these institutional donors that would just ask you to write a proposal and things like that. So it's just interesting to see these new models coming in. I'm going to quickly go to Cassiana because Cassiana is currently engaged in a conference, but she has taken out the time to just come and talk to us. So Cassiana, thank you so much for giving us your time. In terms of messaging and narrative, have we become more attuned? So when I say we, I mean those of us in the development space, to local voices and agency, or are communication still largely shaped by global north framework? So our communication is still framed, by what the donors are saying, or are we really listening to ourselves and then our local voices in how we shape and frame communications and narratives within this sector? Over.
Thank you so much, Toby, and congratulations to the development conversations. This is really exciting. So the interesting thing about communications, especially communication for development, is that it's a technical competence. And a lot of times when we're designing projects, we forget that bit. And when the project begins to struggle, then you now say, where are the cons people? Come. We need to tell stories. We need to hit certain milestones. And interestingly, like everyone has already pointed out, the landscape has shifted quite a while ago. I was privileged to work in an INGO setting where the project was to make an investment business case for a public health initiative. And that was radical because it was our task to catalyze funding that would ensure, especially from local sources, that would ensure that the project would fly, and then the donor would match, dollar for dollar, cent for cent. And it was such an interesting experiment. When we started out, people didn't think it could be done. It can be done. It has been done. And I'm glad that we're shifting. One really interesting thing to also note is the fact that we cannot, funding cuts and other realities have shown us that we cannot continue to do development the way we've been doing. And for some of us, it had been a personal yearning. And so I'm currently attending the Afro-Exim Bank annual general meeting because we have to make business cases for development. We have to begin to mainstream development in such a way that potential partners, and moving away from the traditional donor landscape now, potential partners can see the value that we bring with the expertise that we have acquired over the years and how that contributes to the entire conversation around moving the needles forward across the economy, whether it be the African economy or the global economy, if Africa is going to take her place as she should. In terms of communication, I've seen a lot of interesting things happen over the years. First things first, I've seen, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware, I've seen a rise in content creation. And we jokingly say content is the new crude oil. And thank you, the development conversations, for jumping on that train. It really is the future. Because it's one thing to do an intervention, it's another thing to connect with the people for whom the intervention is intended. Within development practice, we cannot afford to continue speaking the English that we usually would within the conferences and the walls that we usually would among the practitioners who are already doing development. We had gotten so complacent in preaching to the choir, and we were a bit removed from the reality of communities until we began to strategically position communication as a front burner issue. Communication contributes to the overall development objectives of whatever project. And so right from design of projects and at every stage of implementation, it is an extremely important, pivotal thing to take note of, because communication can tip the scales in favor or not in favor. Another interesting thing that I've observed is a rise in consultants. We've seen donors say we would like to see local action, and how can you galvanize yourselves across your stakeholders to be able to have a larger impact, and will fund a movement as opposed to funding an organization, excuse me. That is very interesting to me. And because I've moved from public health to social impact, I've seen that happen more in the social impact space, where donors reach out to potential movements and say, we have these funds. Pull yourselves together and tell us what you can use the funds to do, and how those funds can be tied to particular outcomes, and how you can communicate those outcomes in a way that connects to the people. So you see that communication is now taking a central role, which it should have. It was a sheer error to think that communication was not important and should not be at the front burner of implementing projects. In terms of whether communities whether the narrative is being shaped in a way that carries the communities along, I would say that there has been a huge leap and a lot of progress in that regard. When I started my development communication practice, it was at a time when we would design communication interventions, push key messages through mainstream media, and then use media monitoring agencies to gauge how well the messages were doing. And that was neglecting the fact that there's a huge component of social behavior change, and that people do not change simply because you told them to change. We have been saying for years, smokers are liable to die. We still have huge smoking populations. We have been telling people to use condoms, for instance, and we still find a lot of people who are not compliant. So there are many health-seeking behaviors that we would like people to adopt, which they are not adopting. So they don't adopt it simply because you have told them to. And so communication has shifted to the realm of social behavior change and to the realm of putting the communities and the target audiences in the driver's seat of what communication works for them and what nuances you have to take note of for communication to be effective. I'll pause at this point, and thank you so much again for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you actually answered my question about what the next question what I wanted to ask about what language shifts have stood out to you. I am glad to see that communications have actually changed, because I personally and a couple of my colleagues have actually gone through that transition too, where when we started, we were all about just doing the work, and to us communications just felt like an add-on, or it just felt like my colleague. I remember coming from Abuja to come to the Northeast to just do the report and everything, to now it actually being part of what we're doing and actually using it as a vehicle for change. But when we think of communications now with the shifts that we're experiencing, I would want to just ask quickly, the shift that you have seen in communications, is it superficial? Is it something that we're doing just to tick the box, or is it something that is really happening? And are we beginning to see real change, especially when we look at our own local context and then the people that we are serving?
Okay. I would say that I have been very privileged to be able to sit here and say, yes, I have seen changes. And the changes are not necessarily within the public health space. I have seen more changes in the social impact space. So if we think about social impact, we see that the rise of activism has pushed social impact movements forward. So we've seen things like Not Too Young to Run. We've seen a lot of electoral awareness campaigns, civic duty campaigns, and having that ingrained even in the curriculum. So we've seen, from the lens of activism, we've seen people's voices actually get captured, and people demanding accountability. And if people are demanding accountability, then you really have to be strategic in how you tailor communication solutions to respond to the questions that they are asking. I was privileged to work in a national program. We worked with 43 organizations across 43 organizations who were implementing 27 projects across Nigeria. And one of the most interesting things I found was, because we took a model of co-creation for every activity, we were co-creating with the communities. And more often than not, we had the communities in the driver's seat. The type of impact we saw was outstanding. And sometimes it still baffles me how much impact we saw because the communities were driving it forward. So for example, we worked with a female cooperative in Enugu State. And what did the women want? We designed projects according to what the people wanted. The women wanted market access. They had farmlands. The farmlands were far removed. They were far distance from their communities. So they wanted road infrastructure to get them to their farms, because when it rains, it takes about 30 minutes on Okada to get your produce out of the farm to the market. And then they had a main road where a lot of states could ply through that road. And so they wanted a makeshift market so that as they harvest their crops, they are able to sell those crops to travelers and other clients. Now, we worked together to develop smart advocacy goals. We mapped out a plan. The women themselves led their advocacy efforts, went to the local government secretariat, had series of meetings with the local government chairman, and honestly, within 6 months, they had a road. It's hard road. It was unbelievable. For us, it was a dream. And it was something we felt, oh, this would be a pipeline type project like we typically see. But in 6 months, they hunted and they hounded the chairman and involved his mother and they deployed every tactic they could until they got a road. They have a motorable road now to the market, and they have a space that has been carved out. They're now organized into cooperative societies. And we saw this in Enugu, we saw this in Plateau. We saw in Plateau where women without access, traditionally without access to land, like widows, who they'll snatch your farmland after your husband dies, have access to a cooperative piece of land, farm that land, and get to the point where they say, you know what, we want representation in the traditional council, and get a Magajia appointed in the traditional council. So yes, when we put the communities in the driver's seat, they will drive the change. The communities are extremely and exceptionally intelligent people. And it is, for me, I think it's a problem on their head when the people themselves understand what the issues are, what the pain points are. You know, yes, we may have the experience to help fashion and guide some of the ways that they can approach it. But when communities are in the driver's seat, you will see a difference. And that has been my experience.
Yes. Wow, thank you so much. That was a good example, because building a road in just 6 months is a miracle. So just quickly before you take your leave, because I know you need so in a minute or two, now looking at us, the development practitioners, what shifts must happen in how we tell stories or build knowledge and co-create impact with communities? Because now we're saying that the landscape has shifted. Mr. Nurudeen has given us a very good background, highlighting some of these shifts. Inyang has also shown us like what are the shifts that are happening, like with regards government and donors and how they see our work, and also when talking to us, because here now we right, as we will say, what will you tell us what shifts must we take or do in how we tell our stories or communicate in order to go with this flow, and so that it's not just something that we're doing to tick the box, but something that we are actually advocating for and also implementing? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting question. And I'm a proponent of the fact that communication is a means of achieving your desired end. And if it is a means, then it should be factored in right from the beginning. It is important for us to look at a 360 view of how we can achieve impact. And sitting very pretty somewhere in the middle, and this is me being biased, but somewhere in the middle is communications. Why? Because communication is the bridge between people and society.
Hello, Cassiana, can you hear
I mean, that
me?
is what literally links us to each other. Can you hear me?
So, okay, yes, because we lost you for, your network for a while, and yeah, it was breaking from your end. So where you said communication is a means of actively of achieving our desired goals, and that was where the network went bad. Sorry about that. So if you can just rehash what you said.
Okay. So just to share that communication is the bridge that links individuals and societies. And so it cannot afford to be at the back burner. If anything, communication should be factored in right from the beginning. In fact, before the beginning, because it's important to know what communities really want so that we don't get to that point where after we leave, the project lives with us. These projects I shared, the women are still working and they're still growing. This time around, they have access to their House of Assembly members, their House of Reps members. They are summoning them home, giving them conditions because they are painting and driving their own development conversations. And that is how pivotal communication is. I recognize that we may not have the expertise, and I mean, nobody can have every expertise. There are organizations set up to drive programming through communications. And so when thinking around project implementation, think of who can I partner with that can drive this leg of implementation so that we can have sustainable outcomes. So partnership is a huge deal. A change in mindset to recognize that, you know what, when we say multidisciplinary, it doesn't mean having a medical doctor, a pharmacist for supply chain, and a logistics person, because this is a public health, initiative. It means multidisciplinary. It means there are other facets of the conversation that need to be taken into account because we know that public health is driven by social determinants of health as well. And so we need to broaden our mind. We need to link up. We need to build connections to leverage each other's expertise. And most importantly, we need to co-create solutions with the community. And we only do that through conversations. And hey, what are conversations? Communication. So
Yeah.
yes, I hope that works.
Yes. Thank you so much, Cassiano, for giving us your time. And I'm going to move now to Noelle. Thank you so much.
For having me.
Noelle? Yes. All right. So Noelle, back to you, or coming to you, because this is the first time we'll be interacting with you. In your experience, especially across country operations and experience working with international organizations, I want you to highlight some of the things that has evolved, right, in terms of delivery, accountability, and cross-sector coordination. So especially looking through your lens from of monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, what has really changed in the development architecture? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Toby. And congratulations on your 1-year anniversary at TDC. I salute other speakers that have already spoken ahead of me. You all have, spoken so in-depth on the subject matter. So I will just, give in my little bit and hope that someone here leaves with something. In case you're here and you're not really functional in what we call the development space, I hope that you can take something valuable from what I'm going to say. Because I am in the private sector, I see that my boss is also here, my boss and my mentor, Oludotun Babaemi. Yeah, so I hope that even if you're not in-depth into development, you can take something home. One thing I have noticed, Mr. Nurudeen,
Nurudeen.
Nurudeen, yeah, he mentioned about locally led developments, and shift from this is what we think will work for you. When the funders coming and it has moved from a copy and paste to okay, what can work? All right. You guys look at this situation. We want to co-create with you, we want to collaborate with you, and we want you to tell us what can work. All right, so it has definitely shifted from that top-bottom approach to a collaborative approach. Another thing is that, yes, I do know that they are more interested in collaborating with governments and all of that. However, if you are not in the development sector and you're just doing your own thing, you can still participate in the ecosystem. And that is possible when you take ownership of the issues that you see around you. That is possible when you decide to be a solutions-oriented person. Okay, we've seen a lot of funders come in and people who are just doing their thing, right? With no regard for I'm interested in grants or whatever. Somehow they've been invited to the table to say, okay, we've seen what you are doing and we really want to be a part of it. Okay, I'm saying this because I really hope that no one here feels out of place. To know that whatever you're doing, we are now in a global space and a global village, and your work can be seen. Your work can be seen. So I believe that there's a lot of shifts in terms of solutions-driven work when it comes to development. And then, in fact, a lot of public-private partnerships are emerging. These funders are not just working independently with government organizations. They are also looking for people in the private sector who have what it takes, to help the government, institutions, agencies, ministries fill in the gaps that they do have. For example, we are giving you money. We are giving Federal Ministry of Health money. Okay, after doing what you're doing, you need to properly monitor and evaluate this project. Okay, do you have the capacity to properly monitor and evaluate? Do you even have a team? Is your team well equipped with the skills, the expertise to carry out? Because at the end of the day, apart from the fact that funding priorities are shifting, it's not just shifting. Overheads are being cut. There is a growing emphasis on cost efficiency and measurable impact. All right, so you cannot demand of a government institution what they cannot give. So how do they get, and they are not the ones that will come and strengthen the capacity of these institutions. So as somebody operating in the private sector or in whatever sector you are in, you have an opportunity to tap, because now we are talking about systems thinking. Systems thinking, nothing is operating in a silo. Everything is interconnected. The other thing I want to talk about is the rise of artificial intelligence, and I'm going to plug it into the solutions thinking that I'm talking about and systems thinking. Really, if we are serious about solving developmental issues in a smart way, we cannot do without artificial intelligence. Toby, we were talking the other day and I was telling you about fintech. You understand? Fintech in Nigeria has blown. It is a global thing. We have people coming in to buy our fintech solutions and all of that. And I was telling her that we can have development tech solutions. If we can now we have a situation in Benue State, right? And the whole insecurity, it touches every Nigerian, but it touches me specifically because I'm from Benue State. Right? These people are just suddenly ambushed, and in the middle of their sleep, they are gone. Right? There's insecurity in different parts of the country, but of course, the most recent is the one that happened in Benue. So if we are going to, for example, what are we thinking? Are we thinking, how can we bring in solutions to this issue? If nobody from outside comes, what can we do inside? Because sometimes they won't take us seriously until we see that we are taking these steps. Okay, there is an issue. These people are ambushed. Can we leverage any AI solution to create a security surveillance? Right? How can we, after developing this security surveillance, how do we now partner with the governments in question, okay, what is the problem you are having? We need people that are in development, not just because of the money they can get, but because they truly carry a passion, right? And even the funders are beginning to look at it like that, because we are not just going to throw money at you people. We are looking for people who are already in the business of whatever they are doing. Okay, since you're already in this business, let us see how we can help you, right? So I would say that is, it has, so there is a shift to locally led developments that has been established by a number of our speakers. Public-private partnerships are evolving more and more. Funders are more interested in public-private partnerships. Yeah, I talked about systems thinking, right? So you cannot talk about trying to solve security, for instance, without involving governance and then involving health. So when you are providing a solution, you have to look at it from a systems perspective. You cannot operate on your own, right? You cannot operate on your own. Then I talked about carrying a burden for any niche in development that you can. Because if we don't help ourselves, nobody is coming to help us. They need to see that there is a need. And if we don't step up, then that assistance, because a lot of these solutions we are talking about in development, it is capital intensive. And to be honest, on our own, we may not be able to raise up the capital that is required to solve these developmental issues. Right. So before I I understand we are operating with time, but I think I'll just leave it at this point. Thank you, Toby.
Wow, thank you so much. Like I could hear the passion, and it's just how each of the speakers have touched on key things, but they're all different things, yet they speak into one another. And something that stood out is like, if nobody from outside comes, what can we do inside, right? And I remember some of the conversations I have had recently is that yes, our funding has reduced, but our needs have not reduced. And it is even beyond the funding. It's also the narrative that has been driven by the reduction, or as a result of the reduction of the funding. So you have narrative that, oh, development work, they're just earning in dollars, they're just doing this, they're not really making the change, they're funding this. I mean, there is so much going on. And I'm not here to argue the fact or say, no, this is this or this is not happening. What we are here to say is that, number one, are the needs present? Yes. What can we do to actually find the solution, or to ensure that we continue to address these needs? Thank you so much. Right now, we're going to pivot into the question of who is winning or losing in the current evolution of development. I am sure we can point out different things. We can point out different people say, no, this one is winning, this one is losing. So I'm going to go to Mr. Nurudeen now. So if you can turn on your video so that I can come back to you, and then I'll move to Inyang and back to Noelle. Who is winning or losing in this current evolution? So I want you to just look at this question, or help me answer these questions, especially when we look at the frontline education actors, but not just education, because for us, education is just one one theme or one thematic area out of the different issues, right? Who are the winners and who are the losers right now? Thank you.
I think that's a tough question.
It's a tough question for a very tough and experienced development practitioner like you.
I think that I'll say that the recent job losses due to USID is massive. And I think that has affected a lot of us. And I do not think little of that. I think that is something that is not too palatable to us. And so, in terms of loss, that is one big part of it. In terms of our beneficiaries, the number of millions of children that at the moment will have been taken out of opportunity to gain education, learning, and things like that. The number of HIV/AIDS patients that might be struggling. The number of communities that roads would have stopped and things like that. But at the same time, this is an opportunity for our government to reprioritize and at the same time give more funding and more attention to what is important. I give an example. The week USID stop was the week. How much was raised? More than some millions of naira was just raised immediately to support the HIV/AIDS activity in Nigeria. More than $200 million was immediately given by the federal government. It means that the funding might not be a funding issue necessarily, but that we need to better show willingness and trust to the system of Africans being able to develop Africa. And that for me is a very big one. In terms of looking at the different areas that priorities are also shifting. And so you can look at losses from how priorities will shift from things that are service delivery in terms of health and education, and they will shift to business. And then development is an equity issue. Those that are hitherto not being protected will continue to have this problem. So it shows that when we are programming, we need to also think very much that if what we know development to be is becoming business from the development point of view, then what happens to those that are left out? How do we continue to become inclusive? How do we look at the equity issue? How do we look at the last mile? And I think that that job belongs to those of us in development to continue to shine our light on these salient areas. I listened very carefully to the answer from Casina. I guess that's the name, Casina, yeah. And she talked about how communities are changing the narratives of development. And this, for me, is the underlying factor of how we can succeed. Already, we should look at development from the community point of view. Um, and so in my organization, we are very passionate about how we can work with communities to really address issues from their own point of view. And thus the need that we see for example, for community schools in northern Nigeria, in changing the narratives of education in northern Nigeria, to which we are working very, very strongly on. Over.
So good, so good. Like even from the comments, like I can see people's reactions. So you actually touched on one of the key things, that development is an equity issue. And if we are moving to the business part of it, then how do we ensure that we are actually inclusive? We are reaching out to those that are most in need. I have seen, like, as a result of these changes, how we have, when I say we now, I mean those of us in the development space have started looking up to the private sector for solutions. So while I see the place of us, coming together, to find solutions at the rest, but there's also that concern. How far are we leaning to the business side of things to get solutions? How far are we turning our development work that is all about equity, into like commercializing it just because we need to raise funds and things like that. Thank you so much for touching on these key areas. And I also, acknowledge like what you said, that we cannot, the impact is a lot. The impact of this funding cut is a lot. Everyone here can touch, like, can talk about more than one person in their own circle that has been affected. But like someone said, this is also an opportunity, like you also rightly said, opportunity for us to focus on what is the most important, you know, and the likes of it. So thank you very much. Yes, Inyang, back to you. So my question now is, with everything that is happening, right, are we building more resilient, empowered systems, or is our system still dependent? I know it is too early for us to start giving ourselves like this, but what are you seeing from where you're sitting? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's really quite early days to really ascertain this. I mean, a number of us would have seen this years ago, and we would have been saying, is a government system willing, ready for this kind of transition, right? Transition, like full ownership, because I mean, previously we'd been talking about partial ownership, but now it's like full throttle, full ownership required. So our system is resilient enough to absorb this. You can see, like what Mr. Nurudeen said, for the country to be able to generate $200 million to plug that gap means that the money has been sitting there, right? It's just been a question of, has it been prioritized in a way that ensures that it's addressing health-related issues, right? So I don't think African governments really don't have that money. I think the problem is the priority. So this is obviously putting pressure on government to take more ownership of some of these things, and also getting our own indigenous, whether it's philanthropies, whether it's our own local system, to also prioritize and see that there's room to invest more, have more, like what Noelle said, how about us being innovative about our, solving our own problems? So is our system resilient enough to absorb, this request or this requirement at this point? I think between the government and the private sector, I think that we do have strong human capacity, right? The only thing now is, how do we leverage them and ensure that they are embedded in the system and strengthening the system, right? We have that human capacity, and I think, judging from how we generated the funds to plug the AIDS gap, we have the financial capacity as well, right? So then it's just a case of, how do we ensure that we are adequately channeling these resources effectively, right? To ensure that we see, constant growth and constant development happening. So channeling it in a way that ensures that we are addressing the issues rightly. All right. Are our systems strong enough? I think that we do have those systems. It's just, sometimes that you don't know how much, you don't know if you can swim until you're pushed into the water sometimes. Like, how much can you survive until you really get into that problem? So this is a case of sink or swim. And I'm sure that we do have the capability to swim and not sink completely. Yeah, it may take a while, but yeah, I'm sure we'd be okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes, we do have the human capacity. So how do we actually, take advantage of what we have right now to solve or provide what we need to do? Noelle, you've actually started touching on some of these things, but now I want us like to look at what is our place? So what should be our response as development practitioners? We've touched on the system, the donors, the government, and the rest, but how about us? What do we do? Not just development practitioners, as everyday Nigerians. Yes, because of course, everyday Nigerians make up the government. But before we get into that place of power, what can we do? At least we have about 30-something people now on this call, and much more that have registered that will still have access to this recording. Over.
Toby, this question that you have raised there, I'm going to keep it as plain as it can be. And
Okay.
we need to upskill. Everybody needs to upskill, build capacity. We are in very tough times. And, the only way we may really survive is What is that skill you have that can be used to solve the problem around you, right? And I'll still go back to AI. Let's upskill in that field, data analytics, because the truth is that you can't, even the funders are looking to impact assessments now. Okay, after we've spent this money, let us assess the impacts after a while. You can't assess impact without strong knowledge on how data works, right? So let's upskill in data science. Let's upskill in tech, not just tech, impact technology. Let's just move in that area, because just like the entire world is moving profoundly dynamically. We have to be dynamic. We cannot just be the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so our learning quotient has to increase. The more we know, the better we will be in terms of how we address the issues that are constantly arising daily. So that is what I will say. And I mean, I just want to be as plain as possible. Let's all upskill. Let's all upskill, because as you upskill, we have problems everywhere, right? And you just want to observe the market around you. Leverage AI for market research. What is in demand? What are the issues? How can I apply myself as a solutions provider, right? So that's just what I would say. Even those in government. So this applies to everyone, whether you are in government, whether you are an everyday person or whatnot. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much for just, being plain, as you said. What is in demand? What are the issues? How can I apply myself? As simple as that. In everything that we are doing, we have to keep on moving. So now we're going to look at this section where we reimagine, right? When we imagine what is happening right now, let's reimagine the future of impact. What must we reimagine for relevance and real change? Because after all these discussions, I know that we have already started touching on all of these things, but I'm calling on each and every of our speakers right now to just touch on that. So I'm going to start with Mr. Nurudeen, sir. Based on your experience, right, what aspects of traditional programming do you believe are no longer effective? And what new models or frameworks do you see gaining ground that could redefine impact? So we don't want to lose our impact, but we just want to highlight what is no longer working, that obsolete design. And then what do you see now as the future of programming that will work or that can work in the future or even from now? Thank you.
Well, that is a philosophical question. I'll put it this way: that what will not work again is to think you get hands out, and some people will bring money and give to you, and the way it used to be, service delivery. And also, when you think in that line, you find out that there is funding constraint then, and then government needs to wake up, like Noelle said. But within that, what are we really saying? I'm a proponent of the bypass theory. I don't know whether I'm the first to say it or someone else have said that. But what bypass theory means is, how do we break? Because I think there are lots of barriers within the structures of development right now. And for us to be able to reach our developmental goals, we need to do bypass of those structures and be able to, at the same time, make the kind of changes that we desire. And I think that's part of what Noel is also saying in a way. And there are lots of emerging issues around decolonization, Africanization, and technology in the whole scheme of things. those are the kind of things we should be thinking about. We should be thinking about, I think this is a new discussion that I started hearing, and that is so interesting to me in the last 2-3 years, that I got tired, that there's no development if there is no sustainability and scaling. And so one of the things we stood for is, if it's not scaled, if it's not sustained, then it's not going to sell. And so development, like business, development must be using the business model. If you can't sustain it and scale it, it's not going to sell. So that is really important. The other point about it is that we've so made the world we live in, especially in Africa, to be between those that have and those that do not have. And the elites in our communities and societies are like, I doubt if they've heard what they call learning crisis, because their own kids are in posh schools and things like that. I think there is need to bring the elites into this discussion on some of these very serious developmental issues. Some don't really know how bad things are. And so we need like an elite consensus. I've been using that word, and I don't know whether it's mine or someone else that I picked it unknowingly. But there is need for an elite consensus. And I think we in development are in the best position to bring this in. I think that one way we can also look at things is how can we improve using all of these strategies? How can we improve funding efficiency? Like I tell you, uh, even the funds that we have, we are not efficient with them. I heard someone said that even in the States, when they actually did a study, is a known organization, because I won't be quoting that organization, but that in a state, they try to analyze their budget on how many reach to the learner. And they found that it's only 26% of what they actually budgeted into education that actually reach the learner. So you can imagine that that is grossly inefficient. And so how can we improve those efficiency? I think we should be looking very closely at that. Something we're also very passionate about in my organization, QEDA, is how can the youth of Africa drive change? They are the tomorrow of Africa. We need to prepare them for that tomorrow to develop Africa, both supporting government within themselves and in their communities. Thank you very much, and over.
Thank you so much. You've made a really strong points. Efficiency, how we utilize our funding or budgets, having youth driving change, and then also, just sustainability and scaling. Thank you. Of course, no more handouts. So that's the reality. So yes, Inyang, you are next. So my question is the projectized approach to development becoming obsolete? I know that we're still doing projects. I mean, I am currently working on a project and the rest, but from where you sit, do you see that becoming obsolete? And I know that we've also talked about some models, like we've talked about localization and modular localization systems. Thinking we've also talked about payments by result and things like that. But are there any other models that those of us here can, start thinking about when it comes to implementation? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think in terms of whether it's obsolete or not, definitely the projectized mindset for development is getting obsolete. So there's a lot of focus now on long-term thinking. I think the most thing that becomes a problem with projects is if the financial cost is so high that it cannot be transferred or sustained. That's the big factor that needs to be, addressed as much as possible. But then, from the project perspective, there's a lot of short-termism in it, which is what really needs to change, right? It's a case of saying, okay, this is a big problem. It has been in this community for years. we're going to come and try and, help you solve it in 3 years, right? And after that, we leave. So after you leave after 3 years, what happens, right? We need to be very conscious about that long-term impact that we want to have as we're thinking about projects from the onset. And I think beyond that is ensuring that what we're doing is also kind of like evidence-based. We do really need to ensure that the program is really addressing the needs, it has to be evidence-based, right? It has to have evidence systems within it that is ensuring that we are continually seeing what we're doing, even if we're doing it for 3 years, is it actually working? Because at the end of 3 years, it might mean something needs to change in the way it's currently being implemented. So how are we collecting that? And really, what I would say with evidence is that, can we also have stronger, maybe going to Noelle's point around upskilling, having stronger capacity within our own higher education systems to be the ones to drive our research, right? As we're doing locally made solutions, we should have locally made research, strong research that is speaking to the needs that we have within our society. Because yes, most of the research that has happened over the years have been funded by, foreign agencies. So how do we also get our own government to start funding our own research, be the ones to lead the narrative, be the ones to lead how what we are finding on the ground is connecting to the needs of the society and helping also address that, how are we capturing those? If I recall that there was this study. There's been a lot of longitudinal studies that have happened in the education sector over years that we've studied, right? And we follow them, but then they are all being narrated by people who are not Nigerians or not Africans, right? So we do need to claim that and actually have that, captured in the way we're implementing projects or programs. So yeah, long-term will be project and initiatives and not projects. We probably also need to rename all our work to programs and initiatives as against calling them projects, so that we can also start changing the way we think about them. So there's something in naming and identity. So yeah, we'll probably need to rename our work as well.
So good, so good. That renaming is so important, and that would also like drive how we think. But this thing that you said about having our own evidence-based, like locally based evidence, is so important. I know that even in your experience, getting data that is homegrown, that if you right now, like in the line of my work in education, if I do not quote data from some big names that we all know, the data is not going to be taken seriously. And it's really sad, where we have a couple of research or data or analysis assessment that has been done in Nigeria. Let me just give you a good example. There's so much controversy about the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria. Right now, if I just ask the audience, please drop the numbers. The chaos that will happen in these chats is just something else. So yes, I totally agree. For us to have evidence-based work, and the rest, we also have to have strong research, that is driven by us and for us. Thank you so much. So quickly, Noelle, coming to you. What should young development professionals be preparing for that we are not talking about enough? I know that you've talked about upskilling, right? Yes, that let me just hear from you, like what should we, young professionals that are coming into this space or that have not even come into this space, apart from upskilling, what else should we do? What are we not talking about enough to get them on the right track?
Okay, so I think that we need to be more entrepreneurial as young development practitioners, right? And when I talk about entrepreneurial, I'm just thinking, okay, how do you solve solutions with the mind, with a profit-making mentality, right? So, for example, I work with Cloneshouse, but I'm saying that I should own this thing we are talking about, so that beyond the work I do with Cloneshouse, even though we are doing our best at Cloneshouse, on my own, what am I doing, right, to contribute as someone living on the face of the earth? Because I think it is the late Queen Elizabeth that said anyone that is not making their own contributions on the earth does not deserve to be on the earth. So I'll just say that young professionals, should think entrepreneurial. Like, what can I do? How can I contribute? And the thing is that when you begin to think that way, at the initial instance, it may look like you are giving more than you are getting. But then the rewards will reward. And I'm not just talking in terms of finance. There's nothing as satisfying as looking back after decades of your work and knowing that you actually made a difference in your own unique way. You can start from your clan. You can start from your village. In fact, let's not go far. Start from your family house, right? We are talking humanitarian. Some families are in distress. You are in your own colonized humanitarian crisis. What can you do to solve the issues at that level? And then we start to grow, and we start to grow, and we start to expand, right? So that's what I will say. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very, very much. So what I'm going to do right now is that we want to hear from our participants. So just for the next 5 minutes, we want to hear from them, and I'm calling Maureen to quickly handle that session, and then we'll come back to our speakers based on everything that has happened to just give us like a few words to round up these rich discussions. Before I call on Maureen, please can we just put our hands together once more for ours, for our like all of our speakers. Thank you so much for sharing from the wealth of your knowledge, your expertise, and just being free and open with us. We really value and appreciate it. Over to you, Maureen.
Thank you so much, Lady T, and thank you to our speakers. My God, I have my notes here, and they are all filled with a lot of insights. Like, the conversation was just mind-blowing, and I was just screaming. Thank you so much for betting this initiative, and I'm grateful to be, part of this great story. And then over to our participants, it's time to hear from you, right? I will share my screen. I know we have a whole lot to talk about, but then I want to ask this question. What is that? Excuse me, please. Technology. All right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Please, Angel, can you share the link to the Mentimeter so that they can drop in their questions? So, what is one major shift you've experienced in your development work recently? I know the speakers, they've elaborated on the major shifts that we are currently experiencing in our sector. Like I said, my note is filled with a lot of insights. I noticed that, so one of the speakers talked about the need of being strategic, and then it just broadened my mind to my own job, where most of the donors that we interact with are hammering more on we need to be strategic in our engagement. No more classroom workshop. We need to meet the right people that can get the job done. So I would love to hear from you. What is one major shift you've experienced in your development work recently and you would like to share with us? Also, you can also raise your hand. And if you want to speak, I go ahead to unmute yourself and share with the house. You can drop your comments in the comment section, or also you can also use the Mentimeter to just type in the major shifts that you're currently experiencing. It could be one word, I'll be able to read it out. It could be something that you want to, share with the house, just signify, and I'll, ask you to speak. Let me see if I have a message, okay? Okay, this is not for me. All right, yeah. So someone dropped a message and the person said there's a demand to work more efficiently. So what we usually take two people to do, one person is expected to do more, to do it and to do it well. Absolutely. And this boils down to Noelle's contribution when she was saying the need for us to upskill. Like, you need to upskill your skills, because initially, before, if two people can get the job done, now one person can actually do the job, and you are expected to do the job really well. If not, I mean, somebody out there is ready to do it. Please, can you drop more comments? I'm ready to read out. I want to hear your experience. What in your development work, what is one major shift that you're experiencing? Creative solution, this, you are absolutely right. Creative solution that solve present problems. Like, there's a need for us to be very creative with our solutions and how to even present them, how to solve particular problems that are already there and new problems that we even foresee. Another person said, another thing I've experienced is taking out what's this rudiments, okay, redundancies at work. So we have staff cuts because management has realized that some roles are just duplication. Absolutely true. Some work, see, people are cutting short. Those, when you get to see office assistants and what's the word now? The administrative staff. Now we are seeing somebody handling the administrative work, one particular person handling all the administrative tasks. Another contribution says the focus on sustainability. Yes, and a speaker said so much about sustainability, the need to co-create solutions with community, looking at long term and the rest. Someone said the need to tell our own stories and document our work for those who will be coming after us, basically storytelling and documentation. Someone says thinking outside the box, venturing into something else that can bring you more funds, because you never can tell what's going to happen in the next few minutes without donor funding. True. Noelle said something about having an entrepreneurial mindset where we have to think outside the box, think how we're going to make more money, while also providing solutions. Someone said community-led strategies, the people should own the solution. Yes, community-led. See, we can, right now, we understand that we cannot do without the community. I mean, they are the main beneficiaries and they have to be on the table. Cassiana said something about putting the community in the driver's seat so that they will be able to drive the change. We have started looking for money where we will not look for. For example, we are thinking what products can we sell to raise money so we can continue to solve problems. Absolutely true. I noticed something about, especially national NGOs, they are now looking for a product. They are being creative, trying to come up with new products. It could be a technological product so that they can be able to raise more money and not to be so dependent on donor funding. Someone said, fear, we are not sure what tomorrow will be. I get it. I understand that the sector is changing rapidly, and there's this shortage of, funding cuts and also staffs being laid off. But I mean, we'll have to. Someone said creative solutions. We have to think outside the box to get things done. Do we have any comments in the comment section?
Yes, we do. We actually have quite a lot, and I can take over from here so that we can round up with our guests. Thank you very much, Maureen. That was really interactive, and thank you for sharing. So I'm going to start with Cassiana. She said, I think we have gained a lot, lost. While there may be temporary setbacks, it is beneficial to push us out of comfort zone to our growth and innovation zone. So yeah, so that is one. And then also the next comment is working politically smart, aligning support with government priorities. That is also something that has changed. So I'm reading the comment section now. And then also more community and private sector driven. So we have that collaboration and interaction happening. Then another thing that has changed, or what we see, is the need for building capacity and delivering quality services in the development space. No more doing things the way you like anymore. Absolutely. More accountability, more quality. Then another one is think more inward rather than outward. So looking for the solutions within ourselves. Then shifting from service delivery to smart TA and focusing more on livelihoods and economic empowerment, particularly in the rural communities for sustainability. Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been very interactive. So I'm going to quickly go back to our guests, whereby they just round up this session with some important reflections. Please let us not get tired of taking notes. So yes, if I can have your videos on so that I can quickly spotlight each and every one of you. And yes, so thank you very, just a minute, I had to spotlight. I'm becoming very good at this technology. So I am going to start with Mr. Nurudeen. Has this changing landscape ever made you question your commitment or path in the development space, and what made you stay? Because you have had a very long, fruitful and productive career in this space, but have you had times whereby you've questioned why you are in this space, and what has made you to stay back to continue this work?
Thank you very much. Very nice discussion today. I think that this is the beginning of an end, like a phase has ended, another phase is beginning in a way. And probably I'm so opportune to be fully part of one phase and also starting this new phase, and let's see where it takes us. But then this new phase is where Africa start developing Africa. And I think that I'm so very happy to be part of that. I'm really invested in it. And I think that that is the way to go. Um, I know that government cannot do it alone. I know they need help. We've worked with them over these years. And people do ask me this question around, ah, you development people, you've been there since all these years. What has changed? Are you sure you are doing anything and like that? So I still remain there because I want to witness that change at scale and sustainably. Knowing that in little ways I can impact, and those little things, just like forces of evil and good. If you say because the force of evil is so much, you won't do good, then the evil increases in small numbers. If you know chemistry and you know titer value, you know how significant one drop could be. So just think of that one drop that you can add that can change the color. Also, developing the tomorrow's leader, especially through youth, become a very passionate thing for me right now, because I know that these youths want somewhere to put their energy in. And it is good that we're there to continue to channel this energy in the right way. And that for me is very important. I'll end with my last sentence. We must keep striving for change in developing the agency of youths of Africa for change, to think of development solutions out of the conventional. We need that bypass. The structure that we have right now has failed us. So we need another kind of thinking that could get us there out of this current structure that we have. Thank you. And wishing the development conversation many more years, 100
Thank you,
years.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So good. So good. Thank you so much, sir, for just sharing. And so I'm going to go to Inyang. What has kept you grounded and passionate about staying in this field?
Yeah, so if I recall how I even got here, so I didn't, my first initial career path wasn't development. I started in the banking sector, right? So, and then I decided to transition to development and particularly education, right? So it was driven by the essence of how do we ensure that we are building capacity for future generation? That has always been my position. And I recall, but then, you know, working within the system also, sometimes there are very frustrating circumstances and stress points. I know a friend who said, you know, she's probably maybe she would consider maybe moving out of the development sector and just getting, you know, building and, you know, have an Airbnb or bed and breakfast, just so she just make, you know, daily living and move on. Because sometimes the pressure, the stress of working within the system can be quite unnerving sometimes, right? So for me, it's always been a case of how do we ensure that future generation are secured with the capacity needed to drive because a number of the things that we are doing today, the impact, especially with education, is not like health. Health, if you give out, if you have a project that distributes malaria tablets, right? Malaria medicine, you can see the impact almost immediately in a few days. You know, they take the malaria tablets and they're fine. Or if it's maternal care for childbirth, you know, once you're able to get them to the point where they give birth without problems, it's easy to track that change, right? Quite easily, unlike education that takes a while. So for me, what keeps me grounded or keeps me staying is knowing that education will take a while to get in, but it also needs us to be consistent and continue to put in the work to ensure that that future generation has the basic, especially the basic foundational skills that they require for future. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just being consistent because it requires consistent action. And just building on what Mr. Nurudeen said, that your little actions of good or light is what we keep pushing the bad and the darkness backwards. So thank you so much, Inyang. And then over to you, Noelle, in one sentence, yeah, just give me a minute. In one sentence, what must change if development is to remain meaningful in the next decade? So we're looking at the next decade now, the future for us, right? So just one sentence, what must change overall? Thank you.
Okay, so what must change? We must take ownership of our issues, of the solutions that will take care of those issues if things are to change in the next decade. And not to sound like a broken record, but we already see what has happened with the USAID. So, and whether we like it or not, it has also affected other bilateral organizations like the FCDO and all of that. Everybody is holding on to their money. So let us take ownership. Can you hear me, Toby? Can anybody hear me?
Screen.
I can hear you, I think.
Okay, I think it's Toby's network. Okay. So let's all take ownership and just imagine that help is not coming from outside. And let us think of how to help ourselves.
Okay, so I think technology. Oh, yes, you're back now. Yes.
Okay, do I need to do a recap of what I said?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that over the next decade, we need to take ownership of our issues and the solutions that are required to solve those issues. And I was saying that not to sound like a broken record, but what has happened with the USAID has opened our eyes to the fact that what can be going so well now can just, just be cut off. And I was saying that even though we are talking about the USAID, other bilateral organizations like the FCDO and co we are hearing about a cash crunch, and that is why certain procurements that have gone out since 2021, we are yet to hear anything about it. So let's just take it like we are our own solution, and we need to think in that direction. Nobody is coming to save us. Let's save ourselves. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Noelle. Thank you to all our speakers. Let us put our heads together for each and every one of them. And we are gradually coming to the end of today's webinar. And like I mentioned earlier, that before we round up, we have something that I would like to share with you, and that is our 1-year journey. Please just give us the next 5 minutes so that you can track with us what we have been up to for the past 1 year. I am going to go ahead right now to share my screen. So just let me know when you can see my screen so that, yes, you can. Just a minute. Okay, please just confirm if you can see my screen. In June 2024, the Development Conversations was born, a faith-rooted, clarity-driven platform to heal, equip, and mobilize development practitioners across Africa and beyond. In just 1 year, we have hosted deep conversations, offered clarity tools, trained development practitioners, and built a growing community of change agents across Africa's development sector. Every conversation, training, and podcast has helped a practitioner move from confusion to clarity, from burnout to boldness. We are not just a platform, we are a movement, and this is just the beginning. Hi there, I am Toby Ransomed, and I'm the founder of the Development Conversations, aka TDC. Now, what is TDC? TDC is a platform that has been created to provide an opportunity for development practitioners like you and I to come together and have conversations that matter. But beyond conversations, or beyond having conversations, TDC also exists to ignite, equip, and sustain development practitioners across Africa and beyond. The journey so far has been interesting. And I say interesting in that it has been stretching, but it has also been a learning process for me. I don't think I have built anything of my own from scratch, just like Nara Smith. But TDC has been something or an idea that I have seen grown from scratch to now. And I have learned a lot. I have been challenged. I have been stretched. But most importantly, I have learned a lot about myself. I have learned how to work with people better. And I've also met amazing people, the speakers, and most importantly, I have built a community. This journey has not just been about myself alone, but my team. And so I've gradually moved from I, to coming to a place of we, where TDC, the Development Conversations, is no longer about Toby Ransom, but about a team of passionate development practitioners that want to see other development practitioners empowered and have clarity and are able to continue their work with so much impact and passion. The ability to continue, or consistency. I have built or started so many things, and most times I did not continue. The only thing that I've been able to continue is probably my 9 to 5. But for TDC, like I mentioned, it has been an idea that I have seen grow, and just being consistent day in, day out, every month, churning out ideas or products, putting out or conducting webinars, launching TDC. For the past 1 year, we have been consistent, and we have also built a team. That is the greatest achievement, consistency, not because I have been able to do the work alone, but because I have an amazing team to do the work together with. For me, the greatest challenge, or one of the challenges I have faced this past year, is managing so many conflicting priorities. I have a 9 to 5 that I'm equally passionate about and committed to. It is demanding. I have family. There's also my church community, and I am also fully involved in. And the challenge has been that of managing the different tasks and roles and responsibilities that I have and still being efficient. Apologies, please. I heard that this thing is being delayed. So we're just going to try to complete the video. Hopefully it will be much better now. So please just let me know if sorry, so many windows. So just give me a minute and let's see how, if this is going to work again. And one of the greatest things that has helped me in ensuring that I am efficient in all that I do is having a team, a solid team. So while managing time, and just showing up has been a challenge. But because I have a solid and a strong team, a support system, that has also been an opportunity, and that has helped me to show up for TDC as I should. I remember just randomly meeting people when I go out and they say, "Oh, I know you. I saw you on this webinar with this person, and it really helped me, or it gave me clarity." And also from the feedback that I received, either from the podcast or the webinars, people will come and say, "Oh, I got clarity to some questions I had, or I got some form of hope, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds for me. I got answers, for my questions." And most importantly, I think the impact that TDC has made is bringing together like-minded people. So a group of development practitioners that are passionate about ensuring that their work is sustainable, and are passionate about the work in general, about the people behind the work, the faces behind the numbers and the targets that, we're asked to meet. And TDC has given them a community where they can share their concerns and frustrations, but they can also get clarity, answers, and hope so that they can continue the work. So yes.
Hi, my name is Mori Agi Alo, and volunteering with TDC for the past 1 year has been an incredible experience.
Hi, my name is Angel.
Hi, my name is Emanuela Inyang.
Hi everyone, I am Habiba Sharon Yakubu.
I have gotten to grow, I have learned, I have stretched, I have gotten a close-knit support system and a community.
TDC has helped me grow, not just personally, but also professionally. It has given me that space to contribute, to learn, and also to connect with individuals. This is not just a platform, it's a movement. And honestly, I am proud to be part of it as we mark this one incredible year.
It has been an interesting journey because it has not just honed my skills, it has also given me a platform to learn, not just society development, but also to learn STEAM spirit, public speaking, and many more things. And I'm truly excited for this opportunity.
TDC gave me a voice. TDC gave me a space, actually, to use my voice.
everyone. And I've seen the comments about gender equality. Absolutely, applications are open. Please, we need to make this team more, like just gender equal. We have to make it gender equal. So please, we're taking in more volunteers. We have come to the end of this wonderful webinar. Thank you to each and every one of our speaker and participants that has made this possible. Mr. Nurudeen, Inyang, Umoren, Noelle, Uloko, Kasiana, Dashi, thank you for sharing from the depth of your heart, from your wealth and experiences. We really do appreciate it. We're going to spend the next couple of months just listening, reflecting on everything that we have learned here today. And to all our participants, thank you for riding with us from day one up till now. Please follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. We are building a movement. It's not just, TDC is not just a platform, it is a movement, and we want to continue to grow together. For now, for myself and my team, it is thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone, and look out for the replay of this webinar. Thank you once again. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.